The morning was calm in Gering, Nebraska, the kind of quiet Sunday morning where nothing unusual ever seemed to happen. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like, and share this video. But for Janelle Martin, the day would take an unexpected turn that would ripple far beyond her small town. She thought she was simply driving her husband, Austin, to retrieve his truck from a local bar where he'd met a friend the night before. What she didn't know was that a simple piece of paper left under the windshield wiper would move her so deeply she'd rush to share it with the world, and that moment of kindness would touch thousands of lives. The Union Bar and Grill sat quietly at the corner of a modest parking lot, still empty from the previous night's rush. Owned by Scott and Carla Swanson, it was a cozy place known for its burgers, cold beer, and neighborly spirit. What it wasn't known for, at least not until that morning, was what the Swansons had quietly been doing for years. As Janelle pulled into the lot with Austin, the only thing either of them expected was to grab the truck and head home. But the folded paper under the windshield caught her attention immediately. She assumed it was a warning or maybe a ticket. Perhaps the bar had a policy against overnight parking. But as she opened the note and began to read, her heart swelled with surprise and gratitude. The letter didn't scold or threaten. It thanked. "Dear Union Bar and Grill park guest," it began, "just wanted to thank you for leaving your car parked overnight. I'm not sure if you consumed alcohol at our restaurant or not, but we want to thank you for not drinking and driving." Janelle's eyes widened. Her fingers trembled slightly as she continued reading. "This wasn't a warning, it was a reward. Bring this letter to the bar and we will give you a hamburger and french fries. Please accept this as a thank you for being responsible. Life is valuable. Have a great day." The note was signed by Scott and Carla Swanson. Janelle turned to her husband, stunned. "They're giving you a free meal for not drinking and driving?" she said, barely believing it. And just like that, her heart pushed her to do something more. She took a photo of the letter and posted it on Facebook. Within hours, that post took off like wildfire. "More bars should take note from Scott and Carla Swanson," she wrote. "Austin met a friend at the bar last night, so he left his truck there and I picked him up. He found this note on his truck this morning when I took him to go get it." She tagged the Union Bar and Grill and attached the photo. What happened next stunned everyone, even Scott and Carla. The post began racking up shares and comments from across the country. People were floored by the gesture, how such a small act of kindness could inspire so many. Major news outlets reached out to Janelle, and soon the spotlight fell on the quiet bar in Nebraska that had been quietly changing lives one note at a time. The idea, as Scott Swanson later shared, wasn't part of any big marketing scheme. It had started on a night like any other, a couple of years earlier. He and Carla had pulled into the parking lot after closing up shop. 10 cars were still there, left by patrons who had clearly made the smart decision not to drive home. "We had a pretty good night the night before," Scott recalled, "and there were about 10 cars in the parking lot. Carla and I talked about how we ought to think of something to do for the people that are responsible." It was Carla who came up with the note idea. Scott believes she saw something similar elsewhere, but when she suggested it, they both knew it was something they wanted to make their own. From that night forward, the Swansons began leaving the notes not every night, not for every car, but randomly and genuinely. It wasn't about gimmicks or rewards. It was about recognizing responsibility, about thanking the people who chose safety over convenience, about saying, "We see you and we appreciate what you did." They offered a free hamburger and fries not because they had to, but because it felt like the right thing to do. And for years they kept doing it, quietly, without fanfare or expectation. It had been posted before by other guests, but somehow it hadn't gone viral until now. When local news crews arrived to interview them, Scott seemed almost confused. "Why it went viral this time, I have no idea," he said. "It's been posted a lot of other times." But Carla smiled knowingly. Maybe it was just the right moment when the world needed a little more kindness and a reminder that there are still people out there who care deeply about others. As Carla explained, the idea was never to hand out free meals for no reason. "We do it sparingly," she said, "so people don't take advantage." But more than the burger, more than the fries, was the message they wanted to send. Life is valuable. That small handwritten note was a quiet, powerful way of saying it. The Swansons know they can't stop every drunk driver. But if their gesture encourages even one person to leave their car and get a ride instead of risking a tragedy, it's worth every meal they give away. "We just want to remind people that their choices matter," Carla added. "The more we can do away with people driving and drinking, it's better for every community." Scott's message was even simpler. "Don't drink and drive. Get a ride if you've had too much." The message behind the note may have been simple, but its impact was anything but. As the story continued to spread, people from across the country began to chime in. Some shared personal stories of loved ones lost to drunk driving. Others posted about their own experiences leaving their cars behind, often worrying they'd return to find them towed or worse, vandalized. Many said they wished bars in their own towns would take a cue from the Union Bar and Grill. And while the attention surprised the Swansons, it also filled them with a quiet sense of purpose. They hadn't intended to make headlines, but now that they had, they hoped the attention would help create real change just in Gering, Nebraska, but beyond. Back at the bar, life carried on. Locals still gathered to laugh, share stories, and enjoy a drink after a long day, but there was a different energy now. The staff stood a little taller. The patrons smiled a little more when they saw Scott or Carla behind the counter. The bar that had always cared about its community had suddenly become a symbol of something greater, and for Janelle and Austin Martin, the experience left a lasting mark. They returned to the bar, with the note, of course. True to their word, Scott and Carla served up a hot burger and a generous portion of golden fries, all on the house. But the real reward, Janelle later said, wasn't the food, it was the reminder that good people still existed. That kindness still mattered. That one small decision to drive her husband home instead of letting him take the wheel had not only been the right thing to do, but was appreciated in a way that made her feel truly seen. For many, that's what resonated the most. The idea that in a world filled with fast-paced news, viral videos, and constant chaos, someone had taken the time to handwrite a thank you note and leave it for a stranger. It reminded people that integrity is worth recognizing, and that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't go unnoticed. The Swansons didn't stop with just one note or one meal. In the following weeks, they continued leaving letters when they saw fit, always quietly, always sincerely. And while not every note was shared on social media, each one carried the same message. You made a good decision. Thank you. Meanwhile, other bar owners and restaurant managers took notice. Some reached out directly to the Union Bar and Grill, asking how they could start something similar. Others simply began their own version of the note, inspired by the viral story. One bar in Kansas posted a photo of a handwritten thank you with a free drink voucher. Another in Oregon left a coupon for a meal and a handwritten "You did the right thing" note. It wasn't just a social media trend, it was the beginning of a movement. Of course, not everyone understood the intention. A few skeptics on the internet questioned whether the notes would lead people to leave cars behind just for free food. Scott and Carla were quick to point out that their approach had always been selective. It was never about creating incentives, it was about reinforcing responsibility. If you reward every single car, people will take advantage, Scott said. But when you do it sincerely, occasionally, and with thought, people know it means something. That sincerity is exactly what kept the message pure, and it's also what made it so powerful. One night, a young couple came into the bar and found Scott cleaning behind the counter. They didn't order anything. Instead, they walked straight up to him, holding a folded note in their hands. The woman explained that her brother had been killed by a drunk driver 5 years earlier. Ever since then, she and her husband had always been hyper-conscious about never drinking and driving. They'd left their car in the parking lot the night before and found the letter in the morning. "We just wanted to say thank you," she said, voice trembling. "No one has ever acknowledged that choice before." Scott didn't say much. He didn't have to. He simply gave them a hug, then quietly slid 2 burgers and a plate of fries across the counter. The story became more than just a viral post. It became a reminder that good decisions matter, and that even small acts of kindness can ripple outward in ways we never expect. As winter rolled into Gering, the parking lot of the Union Bar and Grill once again filled with snow and headlights. But this time, something had changed. More people thought twice before turning the key in the ignition after a few drinks. More designated drivers stepped forward. More conversations were had about responsibility, safety, and gratitude. And above it all, one little bar in Nebraska stood as proof that a single act of kindness, done for the right reasons, can spark a chain reaction. Scott and Carla never set out to go viral. They didn't chase attention or praise. They just wanted to do something that felt right, something that might encourage one person to pause, to think, to make a better choice. And that choice, it might just save a life. As the days turned into weeks, the ripple effects of that one note continued to spread. News outlets from across the country picked up the story. Local television stations aired interviews with Scott and Carla, and online platforms flooded with supportive comments from strangers who felt touched by the couple's simple yet powerful gesture. Messages poured in from people in cities large and small, New York, Dallas, Phoenix, even Toronto, sharing how the story inspired them to either act with more integrity or reward others who did. Some had been thinking about how to create a culture of responsibility in their own establishments and now had the perfect model to follow. But perhaps most touching were the stories of the people who said the note changed their minds. One young man, a college student from Kansas, wrote to the Union Bar and Grill through Facebook Messenger. "I was about to drive home from a party 2 nights ago after a couple drinks," he wrote. "Then I remembered your story. I left my car and walked home. It was freezing cold and a long walk, but I kept thinking about your note and how grateful I'd be if someone thanked me for making the right decision. Just wanted to say thank you." It was in that moment that Scott and Carla truly realized the magnitude of what they had started. a piece of paper with a few kind words was changing behavior across the country. And not because it was flashy or expensive, but because it recognized something that often goes unseen: responsibility. Even Janelle, the woman who had first posted the photo of the note, was stunned by the reach her post had gained. What started as a heartfelt thank you had become a movement she never anticipated. "I just wanted to show appreciation for a good deed," she later told a local reporter. "I had no idea it would spread like this. But now that it has, I hope other business owners understand the power they have to influence their community for the better." At the Union Bar and Grill, the Swansons kept things simple. Despite the media frenzy and the viral buzz, they didn't try to capitalize on the moment. They didn't start selling merchandise or create a marketing campaign. They didn't jack up their prices or flood their walls with newspaper clippings. Instead, they kept the same handwritten notes by the register, ready to be tucked under a windshield when the moment felt right. "Kindness doesn't need a spotlight," Carla once said. "It just needs consistency." And consistency is what they offered. Every now and then, after closing for the night, Scott would do his usual rounds of the parking lot. If he saw a car that had clearly been left overnight parked neatly, windows up, valuables out of scythed paws. If something felt right, he'd slide a note under the windshield wiper, just like they had done so many times before. It never got old. One snowy Saturday, Scott returned inside the bar to find a young woman waiting at the counter. She was shivering from the cold, the handwritten note clenched in her hand. When she saw Scott, her eyes welled with tears. "I'm 19, she said, "and last night was the first time I've ever gone out drinking. My friends left early, and I was scared to drive, so I walked home. I thought maybe someone would break into my car, or that it'd be gone in the morning. But then I saw your note, and I just thank you." Scott nodded, offering a gentle smile. He handed her a burger and fries without asking for the note. "No need to trade," he said. "You already earned it." Moments like that reminded them why they had started doing this in the first place. They didn't need social media likes or television interviews. All they needed was to know that someone out there had made the right calendar, felt good about it. Back on the internet, the conversation evolved. People weren't just praising the Swansons, they were brainstorming. Teachers discussed incorporating the story into classroom lessons about ethics and personal responsibility. Small-town mayors asked how to encourage similar practices at local events. College campuses began to explore how to reward designated drivers more consistently. What Scott and Carla had sparked was more than a moment, it was a movement. One evening, as the bar was winding down, Carla looked out the window at the parking lot. Snowflakes gently blanketed the cars. The soft glow from the street lamps reflected off the white ground, creating a peaceful scene. She turned to Scott and asked, "Do you think it's made a difference?" He paused, watching as a young man helped his friend into a rideshare car before walking to a nearby bench to wait out the snowstorm. "Yeah," Scott said with quiet conviction. "I think it has." As winter turned to spring, the Union Bar and Grill continued serving up more than just burgers and beer. It had become a symbol of care, community, and quiet courage. Though the initial post had long faded from trending charts, its impact hadn't dimmed. Carla and Scott began receiving postcards and photos from other bar owners, showing their own versions of the thank you note. Some bars offered free appetizers. Others gave out free non-alcoholic drinks to designated drivers. A few even framed their own versions of the note near their entrances as a declaration of values. One postcard came from a pub in Dublin, Ireland. Another from a bar in Brisbane, Australia. The message was simple but powerful. "We were inspired by your kindness. Thank you for starting something real." Back in Gering, Nebraska, life at the Union Bar settled into a familiar rhythm. Locals stopped in for their usual rounds. New visitors came just to see the bar that had gone viral. Some took selfies outside, hoping to catch Scott or Carla for a quick handshake or thank you. But even as attention came and went, Scott and Carla stayed grounded. They hadn't done this for fame. They hadn't done it for clicks or views. They had done it because life is valuable. Because one small act of kindness at the right time can be enough to save a lifer, start a chain reaction of better choices. And that's exactly what it did. Janelle Martin, whose Facebook post had first caught fire, continued to share updates online from time to time. She'd post about other bars she visited and whether or not they offered anything for responsible patrons. She never shamed the ones who didn't, but she always praised the ones who did. Slowly, a community of mindful drinkers began forming online. They called themselves Noteworthy, and they shared tips, safe rides, and uplifting stories from around the world. As for Austin and Janelle, their lives continued with a newfound appreciation for the little things: a handwritten note, a warm meal, a decision made with someone else's safety in mind. They became advocates in their own right, speaking at schools, churches, and community centers about the importance of driving responsibly and supporting businesses that care about people over profits. One summer afternoon, the Swansons received a visit from a middle-aged man they didn't recognize. He walked in quietly, ordered a drink, and handed Carla a sealed envelope. Inside was a photo of a young woman in a graduation gown, smiling brightly beneath the words, "Thank you for saving my daughter's life." The man explained that a year earlier, his daughter had left her car overnight at the Union Bar after seeing the now-famous note on social media. She made it home safely that night. The next morning, she sent him a text. "Just wanted you to know I did the responsible thing." He didn't know until later that she'd nearly driven home under the influence until that post changed her mind. Tears welled in Carla's eyes as she read the message again. No reward program, no business strategy, no marketing campaign could compare to that. It was never about the fries or the burger. It was about value. The value of life, the value of kindness, the value of reminding people in the smallest ways that they matter and that their choices matter too.